Gentlemen, when a woman is cheating, her biggest challenge isn't hiding the affair. It's managing your perception of reality so you never trust your instincts enough to investigate what you're sensing. The most effective cheaters don't just conceal evidence. They manipulate your psychology so thoroughly that you doubt your own observations, question your own judgment, and blame yourself for suspicions that are actually accurate readings of her betrayal. Before we expose these games, hit subscribe and drop a comment if you've ever been made to feel crazy for suspicions that turned out to be completely accurate. Your experience might help another man trust himself before manipulation destroys his ability to recognize truth. Game 1. Projection. Why are you so paranoid? Are you hiding something? This game involves her accusing you of the exact behavior she's engaging in, flipping the script so that your legitimate concerns become evidence of your guilt rather than her own. When you notice she's being secretive with her phone, she accuses you of being controlling and asks why you're suddenly so interested in her messages, unless you're doing something wrong yourself. Your reasonable questions about where she was become interrogations that suggest you're projecting your own guilt onto her. The manipulation works by making you defensive about your own behavior instead of addressing hers. Suddenly you're explaining why you're not cheating, justifying why you asked a simple question, and proving your innocence, while her actual suspicious behavior goes completely unexamined. She's transformed your legitimate concern into your character flaw, making the conversation about your trustworthiness rather than hers. Notice when your concerns about her behavior somehow become discussions about your behavior. If every time you raise something suspicious, she immediately redirects to questioning your motives, fidelity, or trustworthiness, she's employing projection to avoid accountability. Real innocence addresses concerns directly rather than deflecting them onto the person asking questions. The long-term impact is you becoming afraid to voice legitimate concerns because doing so results in you being accused and having to defend yourself. You've learned that noticing her suspicious behavior somehow makes you the suspicious one, so you silence your instincts to avoid becoming the subject of investigation. Game 2. Gaslighting. That never happened. You're remembering it wrong. This game involves her denying events you clearly remember, insisting conversations never occurred, and claiming your memory of situations is completely inaccurate. You remember her saying she was at Sarah's house, but she insists she told you she was working late, and you must have misheard. You recall specific details about plans you made, but she claims those conversations never happened, and you're confusing different discussions. The manipulation works by making you doubt your own memory and perception of reality. When someone confidently denies something you clearly remember, especially repeatedly over time, you start questioning whether your memory is reliable. Eventually, you stop trusting your own recollection of events because she's convinced you that you constantly remember things incorrectly. Notice when your clear memories are consistently denied with confidence and conviction. If she regularly insists events happened differently than you remember, claims conversations never occurred, or rewrites history with absolute certainty, she's systematically undermining your trust in your own perception. Real memory differences involve uncertainty and discussion, not absolute denial of your version. The long-term impact is complete erosion of your confidence in your own memory and perception. You stop trusting what you remember, what you observe, and what you know to be true, because she's trained you to believe your perception of reality is fundamentally unreliable. This makes you completely dependent on her version of events because you no longer trust your own. Game 3. Blame shifting. If you weren't so distant, I wouldn't need attention elsewhere. This game involves making you responsible for her cheating by claiming your inadequacy drove her to seek connection with someone else. She wasn't getting enough attention from you. You stopped making her feel special. Your emotional unavailability left her lonely. Or your lack of effort made her vulnerable to someone who actually appreciated her. Your failures became justification for her betrayal. The manipulation works by transforming her choice into your consequence. She removes her agency and accountability by framing infidelity as an inevitable response to your relationship failures. You're left examining how you fell short rather than how she violated trust, focusing on your inadequacy rather than her betrayal. Notice when discussions about her behavior consistently circle back to your shortcomings. If she can't address her actions without immediately listing everything you've done wrong, she's using blame shifting to avoid accountability. Real accountability involves owning choices, regardless of circumstances, rather than making those choices someone else's responsibility. The long-term impact is you accepting responsibility for being betrayed, convinced that if you'd just been better, more attentive, or more emotionally available, she wouldn't have needed to cheat. You've internalized that her infidelity was your failure rather than her choice, destroying your self-worth while protecting her from deserved consequences. Game 4. The sympathy play. I can't believe you'd accuse me after everything I've been through. This game involves weaponizing vulnerability and past trauma to make questioning her seem cruel and insensitive. When you voice concerns about suspicious behavior, she responds by referencing her difficult past, her trust issues from previous relationships, or current stresses that make your suspicion particularly hurtful. She frames your legitimate questions as attacks on someone who's already suffering. The manipulation works by triggering your protective instincts and making your concerns seem secondary to her emotional fragility. You're positioned as someone who's piling onto her existing pain rather than someone with legitimate relationship concerns. Your suspicions become evidence that you're another person hurting her rather than evidence she might be betraying you. Notice when your attempts to address problems are consistently met with emotional displays that make you the aggressor. If every concern you raise results in her becoming the victim of your cruelty, she's using sympathy to avoid accountability. Real vulnerability involves addressing concerns while sharing feelings, not weaponizing feelings to silence concerns. The long-term impact is you becoming unable to address legitimate issues because doing so requires you to hurt someone who positions herself as already wounded. You've been trained to prioritize her emotional state over relationship truth, which means betrayal can continue indefinitely as long as questioning it causes her pain. Game 5. Selective transparency. C. I'm showing you my phone. Right now, I have nothing to hide. This game involves providing carefully curated access to information that appears to prove innocence while concealing actual evidence of betrayal. She offers to show you her phone but has already deleted messages, maintains secret apps or accounts you don't know exist, or uses methods of communication that leave no traces. Her selective transparency creates appearance of openness while hiding actual deception. The manipulation works by making you feel guilty for suspecting someone who appears completely open. She's offering proof of innocence by showing you exactly what she wants you to see, making you feel paranoid for sensing that something is still wrong despite her apparent willingness to be transparent. Notice when her offers of transparency seem performative rather than genuine. Does she offer to show you things before you ask, creating appearances of openness without revealing actual information? Does her transparency feel staged, like she's presenting evidence rather than just living openly? Real transparency is passive and consistent, not dramatic and selective. The long-term impact is you accepting surface-level openness as proof of honesty, while actual deception continues through channels you don't even know exist. You've been shown exactly what she wanted you to see, convinced yourself that proves innocence, and stopped investigating while the betrayal continues, through methods her selective transparency was designed to conceal. Game 6. Normalization. Through repetition. We've been through this already. Why do you keep bringing it up? This game involves treating your recurring concerns as the problem rather than addressing the behavior causing those concerns. When you notice the same suspicious patterns repeatedly, she frames your pattern recognition as obsessive behavior, claiming you're stuck in the past and can't move forward. She normalizes her suspicious behavior through repetition while pathologizing your awareness of that repetition. The manipulation works by making you feel like the problem is your inability to stop noticing rather than her continuation of problematic behavior. She's established that certain topics are off limits because they've been discussed already, which means patterns can continue indefinitely as long as she's addressed them once, with explanations you're expected to accept permanently. Notice when you're made to feel problematic for noticing patterns rather than her being held accountable for creating them. If raising the same concern multiple times makes you the obsessive one, rather than her the consistent violator, she's using normalization to protect ongoing betrayal from scrutiny. The long-term impact is you learning that noticing patterns makes you the problem, which trains you to stop identifying behaviors that recur. You've accepted that suspicious behavior addressed once is behavior you must accept permanently, even as it continues unchanged, because raising it again makes you obsessive rather than observant. Game 7. Reality confusion. You're being paranoid because of your trust issues from your ex. This game involves attributing your accurate perceptions to past trauma or personal insecurity rather than current reality. Your concerns about her suspicious behavior aren't valid observations. They're projections of past hurt, manifestations of unresolved trust issues, or symptoms of your personal insecurity. She pathologizes your instincts, making them about your psychological problems rather than her actual behavior. The manipulation works by making you question whether you're perceiving reality accurately or just seeing threats that don't exist because of past experiences. She's convinced you that your instincts are contaminated by trauma, which means you can't trust your own observations because they might be distorted by unresolved issues rather than accurate readings of present circumstances. Notice when your concerns are consistently dismissed as personal problems rather than relationship realities. If she can't address your observations without diagnosing your psychological state, she's avoiding accountability by pathologizing your perception. Real partners address concerns about behavior without attacking the mental health of the person raising concerns. The long-term impact is complete destruction of your ability to trust your instincts because you've been convinced they're unreliable reflections of past trauma rather than accurate readings of present reality. You've learned to dismiss your own gut feelings as psychological problems, which leaves you completely vulnerable to ongoing betrayal because you've been trained to see your detection system as malfunction rather than accurate warning.